just giving some comments on the project for this week, right? So it is when you deviate from this then, right? And so to do your project without the guidance is like to go somewhere without a map, right? And that is where we find the errors then, right? So I want to appeal to you all, make sure and follow your guidance, because the alternative to that is a series of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which could have been avoided if it just followed the guidance, right? So where we are at, we have discussed part one, that was part one going there. We have discussed the methodology, which I'll open the other one and you'll see it. And we actually have discussed the samples. Let's go back to this one. We have actually discussed this already. I think we spoke about this, and the majority had it, you know, the majority had the hazards, right? Some of you all did 3, some of you all did 2. The majority had the hazards, right? But there were those odd ones still where I got, again, I can't remember if it's this class or the, because I have to go back to that sheet, which I'm not going to do in front of you all. I'm not going to look and see what class they belong to then, right? But I had students who were using their own hazards. Remember, you cannot do that. Remember, the hazards must come from here. The hazards must come from the guidance here, right? Remember, the rule here is that only if you see it here, you could use it. So can you use noise as one of your hazards? The answer is yes. Can you use hazardous substances, chemical or biological? Yes. Can you use fire? Yes. Can you use crushing? No, crushing is not here. Can you use projectiles? Projectiles is a hazard, but is it in the list? If it's not in the list, you cannot use it, right? Can you change up the name of a hazard? No, you can't change anything here. The way you see it is the way you have to say it, right? I am realizing some people mixing up this one, though, like health is a hazard by itself. There's a comma there. Welfare and work environment is a hazard by itself, right? What again? That was about it, right? I don't think, I mean, the majority had it correct. The majority of you all chose your hazards from here. But remember, just saying that your hazards must come from here. I did have a student, I can't remember what class it was though, and I'm not going to try to remember, but I try to remember what they put. They had like some hazards like cutting and friction and stuff, right? Now, those are hazards in the book, but you have to follow this table. This is the guidance, right? But this table here, going down all there, you could only choose hazards from the table. Do we have any questions on that before I move on? And I'll tell you one other thing I saw, and then I'll move on to part 3 today, right? So the other thing I saw, going back to the other one, do we have any questions on this, anybody? And remember, you can just make this up from home, right? You can just make it up. You can just choose someday and just make up your hazard, right? Okay, thanks, Cindy, for the comment, right? So going back to the sample, and I'll tell you just the other mistake I'm seeing. Again, like I said, 10 to 1 mightn't even be this class, right? I don't really remember, because I remember the good one, right? So the other thing is this 3rd and 4th column. The 3rd and 4th column is giving some people some problems, right? And so just, I mean, it mightn't be you because you mightn't have even done this as yet. But remember the 4th column, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th column, if you want to know where to get all these controls from, I explained this to you last week. You can get this from the book. You can get it from the HSE website. Which book? The 2nd textbook. The 2nd textbook, right? The 2nd textbook is meant to do the project with that book. That's why it's called NG2 risk assessment, right? So if you wonder where all of these hazards coming from, sorry, not hazards, like where all the controls coming from, we said you need about 5 or 8 controls here. You have to use the book, right? So that's one mistake. Remember, I told you, if you put 2 controls there, they will fail you. If you put 3 here, they will fail you. You need about 5 or 8 controls here, right? People who put 3, the examiners are now saying insufficient detail, right? Because it's meant to be more than 3, and it's meant to show the hierarchy of control. Don't know if everybody understand that piece of it. Let me explain it here. So if it's an enclosed area to be set up for sanding and grinding, you could probably put in brackets here, engineering control. if you read the guidance, it mentioned you must use the control hierarchy here. So the only time you wouldn't be doing this is if you didn't read the guidance, right? So remember I told you about that. The source of information, you all need to follow the guidance. So that's an engineering control. If you say purchase an untooled dust extraction system, this is supposed to be control, right? So if you're purchasing an untooled dust extraction system, this may fall under substitution for those who know what substitution is. Like you're replacing or you're reducing the amount of contaminant. So you put their substitution in brackets. Who say to do that? The guidance say to do that. So once you read the guidance, you can't get that wrong. The only way you're getting that wrong is if you didn't read the guidance, right? Use of face mask is supposed to put their PPE. So what they want you to use, you put in controls here, but then you're trying to match it back to the control hierarchy. So if you want, please take a note of that. I'll try to put it here. This column here, this one on this side, right? You're supposed to follow the control hierarchy. And I remember reading this for you last week. And if not, I read it again for you today. But if I didn't read it, you had to read it because it's your project. Hierarchy of control, right? So that's what I'm not seeing. I'm also seeing a couple of shorter ones, but I did see a really good few, like I said, that I told those students, I don't think I have anything else to tell you because it was that good, right? I mentioned a mistake on the third column, right? So let's go to that one too. A common mistake here is that I'm seeing people are putting a lot of controls here when the control should have really been here. You see, the third column is really, it should not have a lot of controls there. The third column should reflect something that is not good enough. I think I remember saying this last week too, right? Or the other week, right? The third column should be written in a way that it's not good enough, that it's not enough then, right? So like when you read one of this, you can actually pick it up. You'll see this, watch it. Dust mask available, but it is not mandatory that they are worn. So that is telling you it's not good enough, right? So like if it was noise, you can make up something here and say like earplugs are given, but these are not adequate, something like that, right? When you write the third column, you're almost setting the tone then for the fourth column by writing the third column in a way that is not good enough, right? If this is slip, trips, and fall then, right? And we reach here, we can say the area is normally mopped up once a week, but it may need to be mopped up more than that, or once a week may not be suitable then, right? So when you write this third column, remember you have to write it in a way that it shows that it's inadequate, right? And what I'm seeing some people putting a lot of stuff in the third column and nearly almost confusing the third column with the fourth column. Now there's a lot of stuff here and there's a lot of stuff there, but it shouldn't be like that. The third column is what you're doing already. What you're doing already is normally not good enough, which is why we go to the fourth column. So when you write up this third column, it must be saying that, let's just go back to PPE or something, right? Sorry, not PPE. If it's manual handling, I'm just making up another one. Manual handling, you say workers are trained or were trained in manual handling, but that was 2 years ago. So there's always like a weakness then, there's always like a but, or there's always something that's contradictory to say that it's not good enough. And when it's not good enough, that's when you go on to the fourth column. Let me know if you have any questions there. Let me see you trying to get in, somebody trying to get in, getting out. Yeah, it was a lot of issues today with Zoom. If anybody, you know, having these issues, you know, I'll put up the thing by this evening, right? Okay, so you all say okay, right? You sure, right? You sure. Let me just read this for you from of the guidance. Let's try to change this marker. I had an issue today. Zoom actually froze on one of my classes. Okay, let me try to get the marker and I'll show, like the guidance says, that's because of the amount of stuff I have open with this thing, right? So the guidance says, if I could come back here, let's see, clear all drawings. And I change the marker to, right? Like they have to tell you, like they need to put in that hierarchy thing, right? If we could go down a bit, you could find it. Hopefully it's down and not up, right? But that's the thing, like once you read the guidance, you can't get it wrong, right? So look at right there, the fourth column, right? What further controls or actions might be needed? Remember, you must take account of the hierarchy of controls and the principles of prevention in deciding on further controls. Well, the principles of prevention is another word for the hierarchy of control. But they said that, so that's how you know you're supposed to put it. And if you use the guidance, then definitely for every column, there's no way to get it wrong, right? So when I see it not there, I know that's evidence of people not reading the guidance, right? Remember, if you read the video alone, yeah?
I read it, but I did not understand that you had to actually put place in like you know, actually put it in brackets.
Yeah, like put it in brackets. Yeah,
I thought that you had to follow
yeah.
it, as in whenever you're putting in the controls, that you actually think about a hierarchy control to put the place in the fourth column to actually tie it back together.
Yes, yeah, you have to put it, right? You have to put it, right? Any other questions again? Anybody? Okay, let's move on then, right? So remember, I said we are here to help you, but we need your draft, right? We need your draft ASAP. You know, don't feel ashamed to send it. There will be correction. That's just the nature of this whole thing. Again, I mean, just as I on this sixth and fifth column here before we go on, going back to the thing here. There was a couple I think I saw with the word immediate in it. Please remember the word immediate is not a time scale, so they give that wrong. And I did see somebody with like somebody who put 6 months and then they left all the rest of them blank, right? So every action must have a time scale. Even if it's 6 months for the others, so you must put about 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. But it is unlikely that everything will be 6 months. So that is sort of unlikely then that everything will come out to be 6 months anyway, right? So that's the only thing I have. Any questions you all think you may have on it? Thanks for the input there, Rhonda. Other than that, you know, I mean, other than that, no, right? I mean, eventually, if you all want, I can show you some people who pass. Because the one who pass actually have the thing in the bracket and everything, right? Here, some students who pass, even somebody from Guyana. I have people that pass. I have Guyanese in this class, right? So they don't all have to be from Trinidad, right? It could be some people who pass from Guyana as well. But let's try to finish the main one, right? And maybe as the weeks go by, you know, we can have a look at somebody own who passed or whatever have you, right? The other overall thing is that please remember your additional controls, which is this column here, must solve the problem that you create, right? So that's something they look for. You cannot say that high amount of dust, but then there's nothing here for dust. If you read all of this, this is actually about dust, right? So you have to be careful, like when you write up that fourth column, the controls are in respect to the hazards that you create, fallen vehicles and components, right? So the hazards must, sorry, the controls must address that, right? In other words, and if I have slip, trips, and fall, well, slips and trips is actually the name of the hazard. The controls here must address slips and trips, right? Like cords must be removed, any water in the area must be mopped up, the source of the water, oil must be identified, right? The controls must address the hazard. It can't just be things they got from the book then. When you read them, it's not addressing the hazard, right? All right, as y'all are in, and I guess as I have kind of started a bit because I'm finished with the review, right? I'm going to today's work. next week too, right? Our class will be in the evening, right? Yes, I have you all next week, right? What has happened? Mr. Ticker has gotten a job, right? Now he's very much willing to teach, but he's working on a Saturday for now, right? So he has said to me he's willing, but he is finishing 2 o'clock, right? So because of that, I told him, I don't think he should be running home, well, driving home then, when I mean running home, right? He shouldn't be driving home. So you probably will see him again for those who, but this week was his first week, right? His first week was this week. And I didn't feel it right, his first Saturday, to have him hustle out on the road next week as well. So I told him eventually when he settles, he will settle on a time for me, and you may have him for a couple of other sessions, right? Now, if that is not the case, if indeed he is not available, you will have me for the rest of the sessions, but you'll have me for the month of May then, right? But it might not be the same time, right? I actually have a 10:30 time that is free in the month of May, right? So I'm gonna kind of liaise with him to see what's going on with him. And one of us will have the class, right? It's probably going to be 10:30 in the month of May, but next week, right? Next week is same 2:45, right? Unless if he agrees, again, being his first week, second week, whatever have you, right? We will see how that goes. I do have another lecturer, but I do prefer sometimes stick to like consistent people. The only thing that may have to change is our time in a bit, right? Okay, internet sticking there for Cindy a bit. I think, yeah, I think it may be internet overall. Once you can hear me, that's okay. I am thinking of something else, right? Let me see. Okay. Okay, so let me say this. Okay, I guess because, okay, you all say the internet's sticking, right? Okay, so here's what we could do, but I have to trust you all, right? What you have to do is turn off all the cameras, and I'm gonna turn off mine too. That helps out a bit when that happens. We're gonna turn off all the cameras. That helps with the thing a bit, right? You'll just hear my voice. If you have something to say, you can put back on your camera. Whenever I pause, I would put on back mine just so that you would see me, but I will finish the teaching before I do that, right? So let's turn off all the cameras. Now that helps out with the data issue. If it's your phone or something that I'm gonna turn off mine too, but you'll keep on hearing me. So all you'll be seeing is just the presentation, okay? All right, you let me know, I guess, in the chat if this is any better, but this is the only options we have on Zoom to help you all out whenever that happens anyway, right? Okay, yeah. All right, okay, so let's move on to part 3. You can follow my notes because I'm gonna make notes on the left-hand side there anyway, right? So the thing about part 3, right? I'm trying to see where to write this for you. I could write it here, but what I write in here is not really for part 3. Unless if I open my whiteboard. Let me open my whiteboard. By the way, to the whiteboard is work better. You see these colorful documents that I'm opening there? That is what takes up some of the internet data and whatever have you, right? So like the whiteboard, it would work perfectly fine with the whiteboard. But those high quality documents then is what sort of cause it to run a bit slow as well. All right. So now I'm going to go back to that document, but the only reason I come here is because I don't want to write there because there's something, writing it there is not the main thing then, right? It's like that piece was meant for something else. So for part 3, if you want to write this down, I'll just put it here for you so that you'll understand. And then we'll go back and follow like on the form where we have to follow then, right? So for part 3, there are really 2 main parts of part 3. So there's like 2 categories of part 3, right? There are 2 categories of part 3. So the first part, so could I just put, I don't want to put the number 1, so I'm not going to put number 1 because it's not like a number 1, it's like just a category there. So the first thing you're doing in part 3 is that you want to write up a moral passage of why health and safety should be improved. By the way, this is just the same thing, and this is just the first thing you have to do, right? So you want to write up a moral, right? You want to write up a legal reason or reasons why health and safety should be improved. And you want to write up a financial paragraph. So each of these are paragraphs, right? A moral paragraph, a legal paragraph, and a financial paragraph why health and safety should be improved, right? When you write about moral, you can use your book if you want. When you write about legal, so did you all understand this? Because remember, I didn't teach all this. Mr. Ticker taught you all this. So I'm not about to teach it again. But what I'll tell you is that these things are not the same. I think when I sent the assignment for you all, I realized some of you all thought it was the same, but it's not the same, right? Moral means it's the right thing to do. Moral have nothing to do with the law, right? Moral have nothing to do with the law. The minute you put law up here, you'll get it wrong. Moral just means it's like your human nature there. It's your sense of humanity, right? Moral means we do things because it's on our conscience then, or it should be on our conscience or in our conscience then, right? The minute you put law in this paragraph, you'll get it wrong, right? So that was the teaching. Moral means is the right thing to do. So what are you saying? Let me kind of put on back my camera a bit, right? So what am I saying? So for moral, what somebody will have to say, they will have to say like, health and safety should be improved at X, Y, and Z company because workers are entitled to their basic human rights. Taking care of workers then is the right thing to do. All of these are things they could write. Workers have a family. They come to work to earn a wage. They do not come to work to put their life on the line. As a result of this, workers are entitled to being safe on the job, right? So it's a moral sense, right? It should have nothing there to do with the law, right? In this paragraph, in this second paragraph, you're going to write here, you must mention the HSW Act Section 2, right? Please take a note. I hope you'll write it in there because the only reason why I write it is for you to write. You must mention the HSW Act because I feel if I say it, I know you'll miss it. So that's why I write in it. You must mention Section 2, and you can mention some of the duties in Section 2. Like the duty of the employer under Section 2(a) is to provide safe plant and safe system of work, right? You can say the duty of the employer is to provide Section 2(c). Anyone knows Section 2(c), like something from 2(c)? What does Section 2(c) have in it? Anyone? 2(c). Well, Section 2(c), right now, remember, in preparation for an exam, you should do some studies, even if it is an open book exam. You go faster if you study. You go slower if you have to find these things in your book. Anyone knows where to find law in Section 1? Sorry, law in Chapter 1? Like what page is law? Is it at the front of the chapter? Is it at the back of the chapter? So this is what I'm saying, right? This is May month is coming. May is a month before the exam. So you should start doing some studies. One more chance. Anyone knows where they could find law in Chapter 1 without looking in the book?
So page 17.
17.
17. Law.
No, okay. But the duty of the employer is actually on page 24. Check it and see.
Yes.
I know I didn't teach you all this, but normally when I teach, yeah. Anyway, Section 2(c) is the employer must provide information. See if I remember this acronym: training, instruction, and supervision. I know Mr. Ticker would have mentioned this. I taught him this decades ago, and I know he liked it because he was always talking about it, right? It is information, training, instruction, and supervision, right? So that's what you're doing there. You're saying the company at XYZ should have provide training. This is a legal requirement under Section 2(c). You can quote it, right? And here you also need to mention something on civil law, right? What is civil law? Civil law is if somebody was injured, they could go and seek compensation So law was twofold. There was the criminal aspect of law, which is the sections of the act, but there is a civil aspect of law. If somebody is injured, right, they could go and seek compensation. So all of that is going to be in your passage, sorry, your paragraph in legal. When you come to financial, what you have to write about is the direct and the indirect cost of an accident. You can go back to your book, that is on page 4 or 5, I think. The direct and the indirect cost of an accident. You can say at company XYZ, if there's an accident, there could be direct costs such as medical costs, the cost of replacement of equipment. But if there is a, further loss, then it could result in loss of reputation, loss of production, the cost of retraining, rehiring, all of that is what is going to be in your passage for the financial argument, right? Tell me if you understand that. That is actually just the first thing you have to do in part 3. I told you part 3 have 2 things to do. And the strange thing is that the second thing have nothing to do with the first thing, right? So I wasn't going to put a number because the next thing you think is a number, right? So I just separated like this. The first part of part 3, you have to write a moral paragraph, a legal paragraph, a financial paragraph. And then the other thing we have to do is longer than this, and it have nothing to do with that. Let's go and have a read of it, going back to the sample.
So,
yeah.
How long each paragraph should be, like how many lines?
We could look at the sample to check. Let's check and see, right? Let's check out the sample and see, right? So moral seems to be the shortest. I put on our faces, I taken off my camera again, right? Moral seems to be the shortest, right? Let's have a read of this one. We could count it if you want. I don't think it's a number of lines. I think it's you have to cover the thing that they want. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 6 lines on moral. Financial here could be more, but and then legal. What I didn't like here is that this sample, they mix up legal, right? Like you see some legal here, but then you see some legal down here again. No, sorry. Where is it? Look at here. You see some legal here, like civil claims, right? But to me, I would put all in the same place. Like I would clearly put now why would I do that, right? Because it's not really me. Look at up there. Sorry, I went too far there now, right? On the left-hand side, they tell you what they want, right? Look at here, right? This thing jumping up and down today. Look at here, right? So they tell you what they want. They want moral, general, legal, and financial. So I have no need to mix it up, right? So you all shouldn't mix it up either. And nobody really mixes it up after I teach, right? So moral, legal, financial. General legal means is the HSW Act, right? Specific legal means is regulations. We'll come to that in the second piece of part 3, right? So I would clearly have a moral paragraph. I would clearly have a legal paragraph. Well, paragraph, if you want, or more than one paragraphs. And I would clearly have a financial. It doesn't really matter the order, but this order here, I think they did moral, financial, and then they did legal. You could stick to the same pattern. The point is, you can stick to this here and not do it like how the sample had it. The point is you must have all 3, the moral, legal, and financial. Okay, understood. Let's have a read of it. Let's have a read of it. I'm taking off back my camera, right? So they say NGG Limited has a moral duty to protect all workers. Our workers come to work to earn a wage, not to be put at risk of falling ill now or in the future because of the work activities that they carry out now. Some of the ill health conditions that could be contracted or injuries that could occur will have a major impact on the lives of their workers and their families/friends. So everything is moral, it's about your family and thing then, right? Long-term injuries, ill health, and probably supposed to be are also. I think this is a typo, right? Long-term injuries, ill health are also likely, ARE, are also likely to have a major impact on our workers' mental health. The mental health of our workers could also be affected if they are witness to any serious injuries to the other workers, right? Next one, Financial folks, I wouldn't read all that because look how long this is and I'm watching the time. I'll just kind of touch so that you understand one is moral, one is financial, one is legal, right? Financial impacts could be broken down into 3 categories: costs associated with injured workers, sick pay, replacement, equipment, and or infrastructure costs, costs associated with enforcement action. I would not have done that. I would have said the costs would have been direct and indirect, and just give some direct and some indirect costs. That's what I would have done, right? But like I said, everybody's different. The thing is, once you have it, you kind of get the mark anyway, right? The last thing we're supposed to see is something on law. The enforcement action cost includes fees for intervention, which are charged by the HSC. The current charge is 163 pounds. I think you can change that. By the way, I may not be correct on that either. I think it goes up in April. So, well, this is April. So I'm not too sure of the current fee. I know it was 163 pounds, right? So you can probably just Google it and see. Hopefully Google give you the correct thing. The best thing to do is to go on the HSC website and see if we can find the current cost, right? In April, it's 163 pounds, but fees go up in April every year in the UK. So I don't know if it's currently 163 pounds, right? They wouldn't fail you for that. They wouldn't fail you for that, right? It's just a matter of the time change. Like this sample have 154 pounds. The point is not that. The point is they're talking about the law. So what I would do here is not this craziness you see in here. I would mention the employer have a duty under Section 2 of the HSW Act to provide safe plans, safe systems of work. I will mention that. I'll mention that if any employee is injured, they can seek a civil matter, and then the company may end up losing, monies if it is a civil matter, right? So the organization could also find that civil claims some workers made ill by work activities could be made. Some of these claims may be made some years after the worker have left NGG limited employment. The likely amount of compensation payable for civil claims can be substantial. In addition to this, legal fees, solicitors, barristers, courts, etc., would also be likely to be very high. I would also point out that many of these costs would not be recoverable from the insurance company. If something goes catastrophically wrong, NGG reputation could take a serious hit, which could result in loss of contracts, especially the insurance work, right? So the point is, I'm going back to the whiteboard. No, I'm not going back to the whiteboard, right? In fact, yes, I'm going back to the whiteboard. The point is, here you have what you want is a moral paragraph. This person kind of blurred the lines between what was financial and legal. I would have a clear-cut legal thing with the HSW Act and civil claim, and I'll have a clear-cut financial thing with direct and indirect costs with that anyway, right? Tell me if you're okay with that, because we're gonna go back now. We're going back to see the second part of part 3, right? And the second piece have nothing to do with the first piece. Let me know what y'all think. Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. But I have to clean this, right? So that's what, if you write it down, I enjoyed this because I really wanted to know that it's really 2 parts to part 3. All right, so I'm taking this off. Anybody have any questions? You all okay with it? And definitely if you look at your book, there's a moral thing in your book. There's a legal thing in your book, financial. Also on my slides have it too. The slides have the same idea. I think there's a moral thing, then there is a financial thing in your book and in the slides, and then last but not least, there is the legal. Also remember that I am here to help you. So when you do it, send it for me. If it's good, I will say if it's good. If I think you should put in something in the act. Once you put something in the act, it will never be bad. And if you put civil law, this is what I look for. This is what the examiners look for, right? The only thing we tell you is, like, you didn't mention the law, or you didn't put nothing on civil action. The only thing I could possibly tell you again is the fee for intervention, if you didn't research the proper fee. Anybody could Google that now. If you all have your hands free, I have to type here and just probably check it, but be careful of Google too, because Google does pull up the wrong thing sometime. See if you could find out the current fee for intervention. Well, it's April, isn't it? So it's supposed to be 163 pounds still. But I know for sure the HSC had a 20% increase in fees in the UK, right? They have a 20% increase in fees going on, but I don't know if anybody can get it. Please put it in the chat. I would try to confirm it whenever I could, right? I don't think they'll give it wrong if you put 154. I don't think they'll give it wrong if you put 163 because the thing I know, these fees are effective from the 1st of April, but NEBOSH doesn't give it wrong if it's this close that like how it's April and you all submit in April, May, you'll get it correct, right? Cindy say 163, but I am doubtful about that, Cindy, because I know this thing in the UK that they have a whole recession across there right now. If you all have been looking at news and stuff, they had huge protests across there, right? And it's all because of an increase in fees. But I put 163 here, and again, I believe NEBOSH will give you correct because they don't really mark it for accuracy here. They mark it to see if you discuss lowers, and what is being tested is, do you have a moral paragraph? Do you have a legal standpoint paragraph? Do you have a financial standpoint or paragraph, etc.? So once you have that, you're supposed to be safe. I don't ever have seen, I've never seen a lecturer, examiner, sorry, not lecturer, examiner fail. Well, I suppose they are lecturers too, right? But I've never seen any examiner fail anybody for saying 154. But if you give me one with 154, I know that has changed to 163. So I'll tell you to do it over because there's no excuse for that then. Yes, you see somebody saying 163 to 166, right? So you all be careful and you could just quote that, right? Yes, I believe that. I believe because I did a rough calculation. That's not, I got 167 on average. So I think it could be 166, right? So you all be careful. I don't think it's a point to fail though. But when you're being careful, it's best to be careful than to give them a reason to fail you, right? But again, I was saying there, when you all put it, I don't see anybody failing anybody for getting that wrong. They fail you if you don't have a legal argument, if you don't have a legal paragraph. If you have a legal paragraph, you're good to go, right? So you see how smart you all are, and thanks for doing that because my hands were, either on the monitor here or doing something, right? Okay, so the second piece of part 3, again, I'm not going to put number 2 because it's not like that. It's just like other things to fill out. So listen to this, right? We're going to listen first and then you're going to see. And you can write at the same time, right? So this second thing to do here is kind of long, right? And what makes it long is that you have to do it 3 times. So it's like one thing you're doing, but you have to do it 3 times, right? So we call it like the actions for improvement, but you have to pick out like 3 improvements there. And there are some things they want with it. I just kind of summarizing it here, right? When we go back to the sheet, you'll see it better. Just kind of trying to give you an idea, right? So we have to get like about 3 actions for improvement. All right, in it here, so when we go on the sheet, you'll see how clear it is. Now the actions for improvement, it's done 3 times. So just put in number 1 there. And I'll try to fill out what you need in number 1. I wouldn't fill out what you need in number 2 because it's the same thing as number 1. And then you have to do it again for number, like a 3rd time then, right? So it's 3 things you have to do for actions for improvement because you're doing one thing 3 times, right? Now, the actions for improvement, this is the proper name of this. I just put improvement there, right? You are going to choose 3 actions for improvement, but they are chosen from like 3 separate hazards from the RA table, right? 3 hazards from the RA table. Put in this here. But it is technically not the hazards you're choosing, but it is the controls from the 4th column that you're choosing. I'll explain when we get back to the table. For now, I'm just telling you, right? So the improvement you're really choosing, it's coming from 3 hazards. So it could come from noise, if you choose noise. It could come from manual handling. It could come from fire. But it's really not the hazard it was choosing. It was actually something from the 4th column, which is why it's really an action for improvement. Yeah? You want to have a look at it before I go on because it gets longer. Let's have a look at it, right? Let's have a look at it. I can find it. I'm taking off back my camera, right? So when we have a look at it here, what do you see? What do you see, right? Just now, somebody messaging. Right, so what do you see? Give me a minute, huh? All right, just to pull this on this side. So what we would see is, see if you're seeing this here, right? Action taken from the 4th column of the risk assessment table. So what you want to do, let me just show you this first and then I'll go up with the table, right? So what you want to do, you would want to go to the array table, and what you're taking out is an action from the 4th column. Like they have here, purchase a mobile bridge to allow mechanics to be able to safely access both sides of the inspection pit when working at ground level. And then what you do, you put the hazard category back in brackets. So that's why I say when you're choosing the hazard, it's not really the hazard, but you have to put the hazard back in brackets. And then what you want to do there is really put the action then from the 4th column, right? Now, when we go back to the 4th column, when we go back to the 4th column, right? You would see the 4th column have a lot of actions then, right? It have a lot of actions, but all you're taking out is 1. You only taking out 1 from that hazard, work at height, right? I'll show you what I mean just now, right? Let me just go down with this and show you another one, right? If you come to the other one here, you see in here, the second thing you have to do, you're gonna choose another action from the 4th column. In this case, they chose enclosed area to be set up for sanding grinding operation. The hazard category there is hazardous substance. And the 3rd one, you would choose another action from your 4th column for another hazard. The hazard they chose is slips and trips. But what we really want is the action. Arrange for floor to be degreased at least weekly, right? So the actions for improvement must come from the array table. But what you really want to choose, you want to choose out one of the controls that you had in the 4th column to go forward with. And what you do with the hazard category, you put it in brackets here to the end. Tell me what you think. I'm going right back up now. Could we bear 1 in mind? Let's have 1 in mind. Let's bear this 1 in mind. Let's bear this 1 in mind, right? Let's go and try to look for work at height on the table and see if they had purchased a mobile bridge to allow the mechanics to safely access both sides of the inspection pit, right? When working at ground level, let's see if they have that in the RE table, right? So you got to go all the way back up. We're looking for work at height, which will be on this side, I guess. We're looking for work at height, right? Now it must be the same and it must be set the same. Work at height, that's not it, that's vibration. That's hazardous substance. Look at work at height here. So we're looking to see if that control is there. It's not this one. Now it must be there. If it's not there, they will fail you, right? Okay, look at here, work at height. Purchase a mobile bridge to allow mechanics to be able to safely access both sides of the inspection pit when working at ground level. Now notice you have more controls there. You have this one, you have this one, and you have the one on the other page. But you only have to choose one, right? So you're choosing one control, one further control from one hazard for an improvement, and you do that 2 other times to get the other 2 improvements. Maybe we can see if we can find slips and trips. What they had, arrange floor to be degreased at least weekly. I can't remember the one that they chose in the 3rd one there. But I suppose that was it, right? Even if you have 3 controls, you want to just choose one to move on with for part 3 anyway, right? Tell me if you understand it. I'm going back. Hopefully I could. Tell me if you understand it a bit. Right? We're going back to the bottom part of that table anyway, right? Tell me if you understand where the further controls coming from If you're not sure, let me know. I would tell you again. Some people do mix it up, right? Some people do mix it up. Some people think it's coming, like you have to make up another one. That's some people do that, right? Like some people, when they come back here, all the way down, right? Some persons think, okay, well, we have to go and make up another control again. No, you must choose, right? That's something they check. You see what I did there? You see how I scroll up? That's something that they check. They will scroll up too. Right? And they will check to see if what you have said, if that is indeed there. If it's not there, you fail one time, right? Because the rule of the thing is that the controls then, right, going forward must come from the RA table, and you must choose one. Another reason why they fail some students is that people choose more than one, right? It had a student in the last sitting, he chose about two. The examiner said, no, it's one. You're supposed just to choose one, right? I was replying to somebody there. Let me see, I think I saw somebody put a chat here too. Where does the further control come from? Oh, I think we answered this last week. But Jovan, which further control are you talking about? The one on the RA table? Anybody could give some suggestions. Where does the further controls come from? Oh, the one in the RA table. Well, that comes from you. It comes from your head, it comes from the book, it comes from the internet. You make up your own further controls, right? Of course, what we said today, they must follow the hierarchy of control. The further controls is just the opposite to the hazard you create. For example, if that person said that mechanics was jumping over and there was a risk of falling into a pit, then the further controls is the answer to prevent the person from falling in the pit, right? But I think when we said this last week, we said this would come from your imagination. You make up your own further controls, but also the textbook, we mentioned that today, HSC guidances are also a source of information for further control. Think you get it, right? Whatever problem you create, if you say noise, then if you say noise is your hazard, and you say two generators are making noise or something, right? Or a motor is making noise, the further control would have things like the motors can be switched off, or at least they could be run one at a time. So that is your control, right? If you look at the book, they may say things like earmuffs. So you can use that. You say earmuffs could be, issued to workers as your further control. If you look at the textbook NG2, you see things like soundproof enclosures, right? Like a soundproof enclosures, you can put that. You can say maybe the machine could be maintained. All of this is really from you. But to assist you in getting the further controls, you can use your textbook, Google HSC guidances, and you need about 5 or 8 further controls. Did that answer the question? I think I'll do the rest right here, because looking at the time, it cannot be 3:45, right? It can't be. It cannot be 3:45. It cannot be. Because, I mean, if we just start 3 o'clock, yes, time flies when you're having fun, right? Anyway, let me just taking up back my camera. It cannot be 3:45. How do it be 4 minutes past 3? That's about the time, right? 4 minutes past 3. All right. I know it's 3:45. All right. So the next thing. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
In the part that says actions to be taken is three actions from the RA.
Yes, but each one in turn. So you're dealing with each one in turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like you'll see here, like there's a space then for action 1. Then you see there's a space for action 2. You have to fill this out again. And then there's a space for action. There's a space for action 3, right? Think you get it? So each one in turn. Each one in turn. Each one in turn. All right, let's try to go back up, right? So I was saying, based on that time now, because I didn't feel 45 minutes gone, but it gone, right? Maybe you all felt it, but I didn't feel it. All right. So the best thing to do now is just to see how much we could cover here. So the next thing you want to do, I'll get back my marker if I could, right? I'm gonna try to get the marker. Right, so the next thing you wanna do, you wanna give a specific law that pertains to that hazard. I'm writing it right here for you all, right? So what you want a quote from the law. The laws are normally in the form of the regulations. You can get them in the second textbook, or you can get them from just going to the HSE website. If your hazard is work at height, you can just go to the HSE website and put what is the regulations, right? All specific laws are known as regulations. Regulations, right? So you can just put in the HSE website, what is the regulation for work at height? What you want a quote from it, right? So you want to put that quote, you want to put the name of the law and the year and whatever have you. The marker frees the screen, right? I'm gonna try to go this way. Yeah, so you want to put the name of the law, the year, which is 2007. Yes, 2007, right? I know they say 2005, and that's actually wrong. Work at height regulation is 2007. Google it if you doubt me, right? The other thing is that what you want to say here, when you're done with the quote, you want to give like some examples where the company is failing to meet the regulation. Yes, they will be failing. That's why we're doing a risk assessment project, right? So they would not be complying. You have to give 2 examples like where the company is failing to meet the regulation. Let's have a read of this one, right? So there are also specific duties that NGG need to meet under the work at height regulation. It's 2007, right? Google for yourself and you'll see. So there is a duty to ensure that work at height is 4A properly planned. That's the quote. 4C carried out in a manner that is so far as is reasonably practicable safe. Instructions are given to the workforce to walk around the pit if they are working in the area, but these instructions are usually ignored. That's the example of failing. Workers would jump across the pit rather than work around it. NGG Limited are therefore failing in this duty. And that's what you do for this specific legal, right? Let's have a look at another one. Remember, they have it 3 other times, well, 2 other times, right? So we can have a look at another one. Let's go down a bit with this. Let's need to change the marker here, right? So if we go down a bit, what you'll see if you see what you'll see here. So the second one, you would choose another action from your 4th column of another hazard. And look the law here again. They'll have a specific law, they'll have a quote, and they'll have where the company failing, right? So this one is hazardous substance. Again, if you didn't know it, you can put it to the HSE website and use the second textbook. The regulation is the Control of Substances Hazardous Health Regulation, 2002, as amended 2006. Again, you might see the latter part here, right? Certificate students, you all are not penalized for the year being wrong, but diploma students are. So when you hear me say 2007, that this is actually wrong for a diploma student, right? For you all, they don't do certificate students anything for the year being wrong, right? 2002, this is amended 2006, right? Cautious amended 2006. So the employer must ensure that the exposure of employees to substances hazardous to health is either prevented or where this is not reasonably practicable, adequately controlled. Regulation 7. So what is that? This is what? This is the, tell me what it is. That's the what? That's the, starts with a Q. Trying to get you all involved. So that's the quote, right? And the other thing you're going to do is give them the examples of where the company failed. This duty is not therefore being met or not being met due to the excessive amount of dust. So this is the example currently present on site. The organization would also need to report any case of occupational asthma or cancer to the health and safety executive. I don't think there's a need to do this, but this one, this person cited 2 laws then, right? 1 is good enough. You don't need to give 2. Right? Tell me if you're okay, and we're going back up to the first one if you want to see the 3rd one. The 3rd one, again, you choose another control from the 4th column of your hazard, and you put a regulation here. Now, this one is actually wrong. The HSW Act is actually wrong. This shouldn't be here, right? So this is actually wrong, but the management regulation is correct. The workplace regulation is correct. The reason for that is that specific laws are called regulations. If you revise my slides, you'll see that in this slide. Right? This slide actually have it. Laws, ACOPS, regulation. A specific law is called a regulation. The HSW Act is not specific. It's a general, which is why it is shown in the first part of part 3. Let's go up, let's go up, let's go up. You'll see it here. Up here, way up here. You see when they say general legal, that's the HSW Act. The HSW Act is general, it's not specific. So the act should not form anyway in your 1, 2, and 3. Take a note of that down because people make that mistake. When you make the mistake, you have to go and do it over. So it's best you listen one time. The HSW Act cannot be anywhere here because it is not a specific regulation. In fact, it's not a regulation at all, it's an act. And specific regulations are in reference to regulations. When they say specific legal, it's regulations they're talking about, right?
So that will be ACOPS?
No, don't put no ACOPS. ACOPS could work here, but don't put it. The reason is that ACOPS is technically not the law. It is said to be secondary law, if you all read through that a bit, right? You could put an ACOP, but don't because you're risking failing there, right? So to be safe, I would say don't put an ACOP here because ACOPs are said to be secondary law. They're not the main law then. So don't put it. Don't put any ACOP here. The sample don't have no ACOP. I've never seen anybody ask about ACOPs there, so don't put any ACOPs there, right? For the specific legal. Yeah.
So when it is you actually go into the website, be more specific and actually type in regulations for whatever.
Yeah, just type in, or you could just go to the book, just type in regulation for noise and just get one quote from it. Folks, not a big quote now. 2 lines, that's all you need. You don't need, I have people that quote the whole thing here is quote. No, you just want 2 things. You just go on Google and put noise and work regulation. That's 2005, by the way, and just get one quote from it. Right? Or even check it in your book. You could probably type it over or something if it gets it in your book, right? I'd say that the employer must ensure that the work area is properly, for noise, it's supposed to say a risk assessment is done. Workers are given proper, just get a quote, just like 2 lines, and that's enough. Look how short this thing is. And then you just say, at Damas Oil, this duty is not being followed as workers are not issued with adequate earmuffs. And there is no elimination of noise at the source, and that's it, and you're good to go. Folks, don't make the thing harder than it is. It's really simple. The thing is, getting to the internet is long. I mean, it's tedious enough to get these things, but don't put any long quotes like you copy and paste a whole page. No, they don't want that. Look how simple it is. Follow this one here. This is a good one. Well, the first one is a better one, to be honest, right? I think when they did this, NEBOSH did it like a good one. Then they did a fairly good one, and the last one is like the bad one. It's like what not to do, right? Let's see what you all have. Okay, good, noted. Okay, so, okay, let's move on. So the other thing you want to do, I hope you all are making notes because you see how we go in. I don't have much time to write it. I'm writing what I could, but you know, we almost finished now. We almost finished. This is the other hard piece. We're finished by 4:15, right? So the next thing you want to do is write here what you want to do. You want to give an idea of how likely the hazard is going to be realized. What hazard we talking about? The work at height, the one that we have chosen, right? Remember, if you go back here, you'd see, went too fast, sorry. You'd see here work at height. So we want to know like how likely is it that hazard is going to be realized? What is the severity? And very important, well, I mean, what is not important with this thing, right? I mean, like everything, unless they change the pass mark, right? Everything becomes important now. But let me start back at the beginning, right? What most examiners prefer here is a rating scale. You see how this one say quite high? They don't like that. Examiners failing people for that now. They're saying, now again, folks, if you all want, I have you all next week as well, right? If you want. I'm taking up your time and it's getting so late, but I'm just trying to show you, I'm trying to tell you something. I may be lucky to find one, right? I can show you some examiners' reports, right? For this project, you get a feedback. I don't know if I ever show you one, right? You get a feedback. And in the feedback, whenever you hear me say examiners feeling people for this, feeling people for that, I'm not trying to be difficult to them, right? I'll try to show you one, right? Next week, I'll try to find one. And I just saw one inside here, right? I'm talking to you and I'm doing this at the same time, right? So what I'm saying is that some examiners are saying that when you put quite high then, right? Like that's not really a scale now. Like what you really mean by quite high, right? What is quite high? So what they prefer the number, you know, the number matrix, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They prefer the number matrix. Look at that one here. I'll hold it over the screen just now for you, right? They prefer the number matrix, but I'll try to download one and show you next week, right? So what we prefer, not we, the examiner, they prefer like you put a number there, right? So when you say, in other words, could you just write the word matrix down there? They prefer matrix. You know the matrix in the book, you know that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for likelihood, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for severity. That's what they want, right? So this is an examiner feedback. I know you wouldn't be able to make out much over the screen, but this is what I'm telling you, right? We get back a feedback like this. And I don't know if you could make out anything. You would see like where they fail people and where they take out marks, right? So I'll try to download one for you, but it looks like this is a colorful kind of sheet you get back, right? When your failures get back one like this. When you pass, they don't get back nothing because you pass, right? But it will tell you like what you did wrong now. So that's how we know. That's how when you hear me say something, you know, right? Okay, see if we can make this. So we're on part 3. Right? So you can see that 3 actions, sorry, up here. I'll have to download one for you next week, right? But 3 actions have been selected. I'll download one and show you. I'm just trying to show you that these are a real piece of thing I'm talking about now. It's not something I'm making up, right? So they say here, 3 actions have been selected. So that means you're going good. The moral, legal, and financial arguments have been given. I don't know if you can read that. The moral, legal, and financial arguments have been given, right? So that means you're going correct then, right? The likelihood and severity of each action has been given, right? So that means you're going good. And this person, wonder what this person feel for, boy. I'll have to read it in detail. They didn't fail for part 3. Oh, you feel for something with the hazard. So this is kind of mad. Anyway, I'll have to show you one next week, right? They feel for something with the hazard. They didn't describe, they said noise. The examiner say, the person said inability to hear such as alarms and sirens. And the examiner said, this is not acceptable. The person described noise, like you put noise, and then in the table you put inability to hear sirens and alarms. And this examiner said, this is not acceptable. The examiner said the learner could have said excessive noise produced due to continuous grinding and cutting activities on daily basis. So that's why they fail them, right? So that's why you had to send me a draft. I tried my best. I'm not NEBOSH, right? And there's no 100% guarantee that what I say, right, would be what they say. But we try our best anyway, right? And it works out most of the times, right? In the odd events, sometimes it doesn't work out, right? But the thing is that this is a big mistake then. This is, I mean, from what they said here, the likelihood and severity of each action has been given, which means that this person, right, put the scale, right? So, and it was all I'm saying is just put the likelihood of injuries occurring from working in around the inspection pit is 3. And you can give the matrix, you can actually insert the matrix here. If you want, I can show you a next one next week of how somebody did it, right? And you could actually give the meaning of 3, which may be very likely. No, in fact, no, 3 is not very likely. 3 is probably probable or fairly likely. Or here, what, make up your own scale. But the book have one, right? The severity will depend on what height the worker falls from from the top of the pit. And you can say the severity is 4, you know, like serious injuries. So once you see that, they can't give you wrong because you have the matrix, right? So the idea here, I'll write them when I finish because I'm still going through the explanation. The idea there is to put the matrix or put a matrix, right? You can make up your own matrix. The book have one, Google have plenty, right? Put a matrix, put what the numbers mean. Like when you put the matrix, don't just say 3, you know, you have to say what a 3 means. You have to say 3 means, you know, like fairly likely. For severity, if you put 4 means, you know, serious injuries. You have to put what the matrix numbers mean, right? And the other piece of this is very simple. As I said, folks, we almost finished. You put the types of injury or ill health here. You put the number of workers of risk there. You put how often is the activities carried out, and you put how widespread is the risk. Now, this last one, a lot of people seem to be forgetting this, and the examiners are looking for that. How widespread is the risk, right? So the type of injuries. So injuries are likely to range from minor injuries, such as bruising, sprains, strains, slightly more serious injuries such as fractures, or very serious injuries such as head or internal injuries. Number of workers at risk, approximately 6 mechanics regularly work around the inspection pit area. How often the activities carried out. The inspection pit is regularly daily use and isn't regular daily use. And most mechanics carry out work in the area. How widespread the risk is confined to the inspection pit area only, and affects workers only in this area. Let's have a look at the second one to have an idea of that too. So think about if you have any questions. So the likelihood of health occurring, again, remember I tell you they do like that quite high. It's best to put a number. The severity is 4, and you can see what the numbers mean. The type of injuries would be here, right? Breathing in dust over prolonged periods can result in occupational cancer. How many workers at risk there? Most of the workforce and the general public are currently exposed to dust. Some examiners don't like this. They like a number, right? Be careful with this. When you put most workforce, some examiners saying that's not good enough. I'll have to show you some of these feedback. Well, you could take my word for it, but if my word is not convincing you, I'll have to show you some of the feedbacks, right? So most of the workforce, some examiners do like that. They wanted to say like 20 workers, right? How often is the activity carried out? High concentration of processed dust is always present from the routine and mixing, frequent grinding activities being carried out. I don't know if they would like that. Some examiners would want to say that the activities is carried out twice a day or 4 times a day or something, right? How widespread is the risk? The risk is present throughout the garage. So that's kind of okay, right? Let's go and try to finish it because I will just show you another one that have the same thing as this, right? We have 2 more things to fill out. Sorry, we have 1 more thing to fill out, right? And then we finish off with 1. So the last thing to do in one of them from part 3, because you don't have to go and do that 3 times. I've been kind of scrolling down for you to see the other times as well as that. You have to write and say what you think the intended impact of your action will be. What is your action? Well, your action will be what would have been chosen from the 4th column. Purchase a mobile bridge. That was your control. Well, when I say you, I mean, that was the person controlling this sample, right? So you have to say, what is the impact of the company doing that? Like, what would that do for the company? You have to go back. Sorry, I went too far. You have to go back and say why you chose the time scale that you did. What time scale we talking about? We're talking about the time scale in the 5th column, right? Keep your mind on this. 2 months, 2 months, 2 months. I'll scroll up and show you just now, right? 2 months, 2 months, 2 months, right? Keep your mind on that. And then you have to say whether or not you think the action would fully control the risk, right? Let's go back and look for it. By the way, it must be the same 2 months. Again, this is what they check. This is what they check, right? So the reason for going up here in my limited time is not to waste your time, but the reason for going up here is to tell you that, you know, that this is what they check. And what was it? Work at height? Work at height, right? Purchase a mobile bridge. Look at here. Purchase a mobile bridge, right? Purchase a mobile bridge. That was it. So see if we can make it out there. It must be 2 months. And that is it anyway there, 2 months, right? So like they go back and they check that 2 months. The minute you put a time frame there that is not 2 months, they give you it wrong one time. So you have to go back and check. Again, some people decide to make up a new control, which is wrong. Some people decide to make up a new time scale. Once you put another time scale there, project fail. Remember, the project is a test on followed instructions. It's not really totally accurate, but certain things they ask you for, you have to do that, right? So let's go back and read out the last piece of it. Right? So you have to say, what is your intended impact of the bridge? So the bridge would improve working practices in the area of the inspection pit. At the moment, workers tend to jump from one side of the pit to the other, which have obvious risk associated with it. Right? Next thing is the time scale. So anyway, so what is the intended impact? The intended impact is that they say it would improve working practices or whatever. You can say it would reduce the risk. You can say that in your own way, right? If it was slip, trips, and fall, or sorry, slips and trips, my mistake, and you say, well, the source of the water, you know, the pipe should be relocated or whatever, or whatever it is, maybe it's a pond or a pit or something that's overflowing. You can say relocating the pit or relocating the pipe would, you know, solve the problem then, right? It would actually improve condition, would actually prevent the spill onto the machine shop floor, right? And you give back your same time scale. I have given a time scale of 2 months, and you have to say why you give that time scale, right? As this is a specialized piece of equipment that nobody in the business has used before, the business would need to source a supplier and then arrange a delivery date. It is hoped that this project will be well completed or will be completed well within the 2 months timeline. And the last thing you do now, you say whether you think the action would fully control the risk. You don't have to say it will fully control, but you have to say what you think, right? You say the bridge will definitely reduce the likelihood of falling into the pit and getting serious injuries. Risk would be adequately controlled. I mean, you didn't say fully controlled, but you said adequately controlled, right? Let's have a read of the other one. Let's have a read of the other one. And, you know, see if you have any questions there. Anyone have any question? Let's go down. Yeah, I'll go down to the other one while I answer the question, right?
In doing this part, I don't know if it really making sense in my head. It's making me think that when you go back to see the time frame that you put there, it might make you change it, like.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to change it, fine. Fine. But if you change it there, you have to change it in the RA table too.
So why does I say that is because you have to make sure your reason for your time scale.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like if it makes sense with money and people who have to sign off or whatever have you, you know. But
Okay.
yeah. So you could actually, like, if you look back and you realize maybe, you know, like maybe when you looked at it, you realize, okay, well, maybe that action will take a longer time, you know, or if it was just a move a code or whatever have you, right? You could say that you could change the time, but if you change it here in part 3, you have to go back and change it on the table. It must be the same, right? So feel free to change it, but make sure whatever you change it or wherever you're changing it, it is the same, right? You go back and you fix the same time then for both of them. Let's read this one. So this was to purchase, I think, the on-tool dust extraction system. The dust enclosure, which is an LEV thing, if you all know what that is. It's like a big vacuum, right? If you don't know what an LEV is. The dust enclosure will have a major impact on the amount of dust in the workplace. It will stop the dust from spreading across all work areas. I have given a time scale of 6 months for this to be completed, as plans would need to be drawn up and the budget for the project would also need to be agreed with the managing director. I would hope that this would be the maximum amount of time that this project would need to be completed. The last thing you're doing is saying whether or not you think the action would fully control the risk. So you're saying here, this will fully control the risk as it does would be significantly reduced. Again, you don't have to say that. Like I try to show you a varied amount of them because you'll see some of them didn't say fully. The first one didn't say fully, and this last one didn't say fully either, right? By the way, next week we'll kind of touch on part 4 a bit, right? Part 4 is very, very simple. Part 4 is simple as part 1, right? The bulk of the work, and you all are still in the RA table. To be safe, right? Let me tell you what we could do. You know, part 4 is just like part 1. There's nothing really to part 4, right? What we could do, seeing that I know that you all are still on the RA table, we could take it like that now. Like this week, you all could try to do your RA table, see if we can start something in part 3. And when we finish off that, then we can come and do part 4, because doing part 4 now, and nobody's even close to that, may make that information go over your head, right? So next week, I don't mind teaching, because Mr. Ticker not available, I told you, right? And I don't mind teaching, like back to theory, and then touch a little bit on the project. And then the other week, by the other week, you all may catch up, you all may finish the part 2, the table, and then start the part 3. So by the other week, if I have you all, I'll come and I'll do the RA table. Well, part 4. And part 4 is nothing difficult. Part 4 is the same as part 1, right? Let's take a look at this one. I'm not too sure what this was. I think this was a slip and trips thing, right?
Hi, sir. Excuse question.
Sure.
Is with regard to the table with the time scales for further action, right? I know you mentioned before that 6 months is be a lot, but it have certain things like with regards to training and stuff. If you want to put it yearly, could you put that or?
No, I don't think they're giving the yearly as an answer. Anything that is not a number, like continuous, they say is wrong now. Yearly, they say is wrong now. What they wanted to do, right? They wanted to say like, if you want to say training, you want to say like when should the training be done? So you say like within 2 months, right? But there's no need to
put anything like yearly.
Yeah, like monthly, yearly, continuous, all of those things are wrong now, right? And respect to the first one, the 6 months, I think some things may be 6 months, but remember what I told you, right? Like you gotta be careful in what you're saying, like
anytime.
Like if a hazard is fire, right?
Yeah.
You gotta be careful. Like if they say, okay, like fire extinguishers should be purchased in 6 months' time. No, that's too long. So what's going to happen from now to 6 months and if we have a fire? You understand? So be careful with these 6 months. I think 6 months could work for like specialist piece of equipment or specialized pieces of equipment. But you have to be careful, like when you put in controls that are long, because I told you it's like, for those of us who work, right, you'll understand what I'm telling you. If you raise something in your company, right, with something to buy or something, and they tell you 6 months from now, so what you going to do next week then? What you going to do about the noise next week? And the week after that, you're going to put up with that for 6 months' time? What are you going to do about the oil spill if something for a bond or something that you said to purchase? So yeah, they be careful with that 6 months because they examine, you know, like their logic is sometimes if you wait that long, that's a sure way of not getting it done, right? But it may be something like with this is something where a budget to be agreed on is like a month, right? So you could put like 4 weeks to 6 weeks or put 6 weeks instead of 6 months, right? So, but if you have one, I'm saying if you have one and it's 6 months and you think it's justifiable and I read it and I think it's justifiable, I would say leave it.
So the example, right, is like it's a hazardous substance, right? And then I have implementing a health surveillance system to track like staff who might have been
1 month. 1 month. Haven't
1
done
month.
it 1 month.
You
Yeah,
can't
1
put
month.
like every 3 months or anything like that.
I think you can.
Well, I guess when I said the risk assessment, you'll be able to comment further.
I think you could put like 6 weeks, like within 6 weeks, and that's okay. There's no need to reflect the continuous nature of it.
Okay.
Right? But you could put you know, you can put within 6 weeks. And then the thing is, you see, remember, I know what these examiners thinking. I know what I am thinking, and I know what the examiner's thinking. I am thinking you could put quarterly, but I know the examiners will give quarterly wrong. I'm telling you. I know, look, I have them here. We have tons of these, and everybody that we have, you know, we have a lot of these. So
Okay, sir.
the thing is, I know what to tell you, but it's what some of them examiners, and by the way, you know, I told you examiners make mistakes too. Next thing they watch your time scale and they see the 6 weeks and they see quarterly and they know quarterly not supposed to be there, right? They will actually mark it on the paper. They will say the student mentioned quarterly, which is not a time scale. But isn't quarterly a time scale? It is a real time scale. That's I tell you, this project is kind of made up. It's kind of imagined project, right? NEBOSH needs to change his project drastically right now. I know it came about because of the pandemic, but to me, it's a kind of misfit project then, right? Misfit, those of us who know how to do a risk assessment, you know, we don't really do risk assessment like this. So in a way, NEBOSH teaching us something here that is not really the way it is done in real life. Continuous is a time scale. Ongoing is a time scale. Immediate is a time scale, but not for NEBOSH. Just remember what I said today, and then not for NEBOSH. You can't put none of that. You cannot put immediate, you cannot put quarterly, all of those things you can't put it, right? 4:15, folks. I think we finished there, but the only thing you have to do again now is do that 2 other times, right? Well, we have been scrolling all the time to look at the others as well, right? So you pick out plus part 4, right? Which is short, but you pick out another control. Let's go to the left-hand side here, right? You pick out another control, you put the hazard in brackets. Somebody have to leave. Okay, just tell me who you are if you have to leave. Because I know I'm ready to finish too, you know. I'm ready to finish as well. That would be Chapman, right? Yeah, I have to leave too. Been sitting here since 8:30. Yeah. So specific legal, what is wrong in this is that this is not specific. This is a law, so that one was wrong. Then, like, I am not seeing the example of where the company failing to meet. So don't follow number 3, right? You put the likelihood severity, you put the rating scale. Make sure and give these, for some strange reason, folks, right? NEBOSH seem to like it next to it. Like, you see how this is lining up with this? Like how this line up with that? Like, that's how they like it. Like this line up. Oh, where the number of workers, boy? I didn't see that. But the number of workers supposed to be there. How often is the risk carried out supposed to be? It's like it's supposed to line up, right? Now, there's no line here, but I had a student, right? I'll end with this. I had a student who wrote all of this in a passage. I check it, right? And everything there. He had everything. He had the number of injuries. He brought it back to me. And he said, well, what's going on? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm not the marker, right? He had all of this in the thing, but it wasn't lined up. Like it was in the discussion there, you know, but it wasn't lined up. And that's what I said. I said to him, I felt that whoever read it, they didn't see what you were saying. How widespread the risk was there. You did say the whole company, but like it wasn't in alignment with how you see it there, right? So since then, I learned to tell students, make sure and kind of line it up anyway, like some sort of an alignment with it so that it's easy to trace then, right? That's it for today, right? Let's just get the rule a bit. So what did I do here? Okay, I have a piece of paper here for you all, right? Any questions you all can ask still? And please remember, I am available during the week.